I will start with announcements. The Blender Animation Studio has announced the pre-premiere of Spring Open Movie Project. So do you hear of Spring? Spring is the new open movie that is being worked on for like already months. It's almost like, is it like almost 18 months or so of being working on it. So the release is going to happen, if you check out the blog, on March 27th of April. It's a pre-premiere, so it's gonna be for the team mainly and Blender Cloud subscribers. Yes, you heard it right. There is space for the people that actually managed to like fund this project. So if you are a Blender Cloud subscriber and you are in Amsterdam, you should hurry up because there might be some room for you to join and hang out. So you have to get in touch with Ton and basically just arrange it there. So it's still out of sync, but I think it's a bit better. Okay, thank you very much for the heads up. Basically, there is like a latency between the USB, HDMI, and the world and the flat earth and everything. So they that's like the big announcement, basically. Spring theatrical premiere today. I was sending some renders, more final, but then there are some Alembic issues that we have to re-render some of the frames. So there are a few things. Thank you, by the way, to Momotron 2000 for making the announcements for today. The other community announcements that I want to do before moving on, before showing the Blender features, the Blender updates, is regarding this website, Blender Community, and the show, Blender Community. So next week is going to be the last Blender Today Live. Hold on, don't cry yet. At home, where I'm actually at home. I'm just in my one of my rooms. I'm now making this show, but starting April, the 1st of April, it's not a April's joke. We are gonna make this show at the Blender Studio. So what does it mean for Blender Today? It just means great things because I don't have to do it super late here. Like sometimes I get guests, but it's not the most convenient way to have guests. But if I manage to get it, like I think we're gonna do it around 5 p.m. So it's during work hours, so I can get guests, can get people coming over, and we can chat and make it a bit more interactive. Also developers, and basically just make it. Yeah, no, not the last ever, no joke. Don't cry. It's going to be great because it means, yeah, we can get more people, and also it's gonna be, I'm gonna be spending most of the day just setting up Blender Today. Whereas now I have like my head in like something else at work, and then I come here and then I make this show. But so great news. It's just gonna get awesomer. The show, though, is gonna move to a bigger channel, the Blender Foundation channel. So this little independent project that I started a few years ago now is gonna be part of the official Blender YouTube channel. That's kind of a big deal because that channel has like over 300,000 people. So it's gonna be cozy in there, to say the least. If you're probably subscribed to the Blender Foundation. If you're not, just go to search for anything Blender and or youtube.com/Blender Foundation. I'm gonna post a link next week when I announce the next live stream. So next week I'm gonna announce the other one and I give you the link so you can join. Then more news. This channel, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with this channel. Probably I am gonna get we might rename it to something else so it's not confusing because the show and everything, but we might combine it with the Blender Community website. So that I still have to decide for next week. But yes, they're suggesting there in the comments, I'm gonna get a better computer. That's an upgrade. So everything should be better over time. Basically, I'm just gonna bring my stuff at work. Then another announcements that are going on right now regarding this website is that Blender Community is going to host a new project. This is a teaser. This is just a teaser. But basically, this is my local copy of Blender Community, and on the side, I don't know if you get to see this little icon, the G and the A. I don't know if you're familiar with it, is graphic all. So this is like a work in progress. It has as a bird as an icon, but basically when you click on it, you get a bird and you get builds. So basically the graphic all website that is super old, is like 2005 old, that contains builds uploaded by the community. It's going to be merged and be part of Blender.community. So that is also big news. We are gonna see how we can make it work. So basically when you are here and you are just browsing like news from right click select or Blender Today or your local communities, you're gonna see builds, because there is Blender Today goes live stream, because the idea is to host more of the builds, especially with the new sculpt improvements. I think that was one of the biggest motivations to start that project and just merge it back. Then other updates is that there are gonna be 4 new communities joining. One of them is the Blender Italia. It's gonna have its own community here. Blender, for the French-speaking community will be one. Blender Aujourd'hui, I think. My French is a bit rusty. Then there will be 2 more communities for jobs and events. So the job support from the Blender network is gonna go also here, and the events also from Blender network are gonna be moved to here. So there has one place to go and not 1,000 like it is right now. But more on that next week. All right, let's continue with the news. This is not really Blender related, but it's just cool news. Godot 3.1 has been released. It's super stable, has a lot of features, and it's not Blender related, but it's, if you're not familiar with it, it's a game engine, open source, and it works great with Blender. So that's why the heads up, the shout out to the Godot team. Next, this is a video/tutorial. If you're like a developer and want to get into it, like into helping out Blender however you can, check out the fixing a bug video. I put it on Blender Today on the community website, about how to fix a bug in Blender. So it's super technical, of course. It's development basically. It's not like a tutorial how to make a donut. It's how to fix a bug in Blender. So you actually have to be familiar with compiling Blender already, but it's a great starting point to get in the head of a developer, and especially this developer, which Jack Luke, he's a creator of animation nodes. He's working on everything nodes, so it's it's kind of a good mind to get into. Intimidating, I'm not gonna say, but yes, I'm not gonna lie, but it's super interesting to see. I think we need more of this kind of content, and I would like to start making more of these videos now that we finished with the spring, or almost finished with spring, at the Blender Developers YouTube channel. So yes, it's gonna be interesting. It's not a burn, it's just a nice wink, because it's just 2 different topics. All right, let's move on. Where do you read the news from the Blender development? Well, you go to either Blender Today or you go to code.blender.org. I always try to send people here, because here's where you can actually see everything that happens at the same time. 18th of March is today, by the way. The meeting notes have been updated with some of the things that happened this week, but I have my own little list. There is the Python API that I mentioned. There is some the add-on, the X3D add-on is also back. But the first thing I want to show is actually in the interface. It's a small thing, but it makes things a bit more consistent. And I think I mentioned it the other day here live on the stream. So let's open Blender. Let's hope nothing blows up here. This small little UI thing, it's super handy. Basically, it's just moving more. Remember some weeks ago, if you have the node editor, you will see that if you're doing, like, for example, shading. Okay, it's choppy again. So welcome to one of the last few Blender Todays. So yeah, basically now the end panel, or the sidebar of the shader editor, not only contains the material settings, but also for world, for example. So if you have a world shader, like you're making your world settings, you can enable or disable settings also from here. So if you're in, I think if you're in cycles, you'll find the array visibility or the settings for the world here. So you don't have to go and scatter it around, which is pretty nice, because when you have an object, you will find all the settings in one place, which is what's done for settings. It's also done for lights. So if you select the light, you will find you can actually change the light settings from here. So like if you want a sun lamp, and then the size and bounces. So that means that you no longer need so often to access the sidebar, the properties. So one less editor to worry about. Yay. So okay, I think I'm speaking a bit too loud. Cheers, by the way. I don't know if I'm gonna be allowed to do this at work, because it's gonna be at 5 p.m. on the Blender official YouTube channel, and I don't want to do these kind of things on the official YouTube channel. In Blender Today here in this channel, I do it because it feels like hanging out with friends, basically just showing Blender stuff. But should I wear a tie at the Blender official YouTube channel? Let me know in the comments below. Another improvement, this is a small one, but so huge. Curves, who doesn't use curves? They're super handy, but their default settings were not always so optimal. Basically, when you add a curve, by default, if you add some like a bevel resolution, you will find that if you increase, the fill mode was set to half. So it was like a half a pipe. So if you add some bevel, you will find extrude, offset. There you go. So if you insert some bevel, there you go, depth. It was half a pipe. Super handy, Blender. Who uses half a pipe? So by default now it's a full, and also has a bit more resolution, so you can actually have a bit more of a more detail on your curves. So shades, yes. No tie. Buy a flask for Blender official channel. One beer, mate at the end. Maybe I can have mate. But then also people think it's drugs, you know. It's just mate. It's like tea. Next, if you're using Blender from the build, from the latest compiled version in the last few days, and you notice that selection got improved somehow. Selection in Blender, it's famous for not always being super precise. I never really was that bothered by it, because for selecting objects that are behind other objects, I usually just do Alt and then right click, so I can just basically pick the object that I want to select. So that for me that usually was enough. There is though a setting in the user preferences since Blender 2.7, 2.6 even, I think, that allows you to change the kind of selection, so it might work better with your graphics card. It was very dependent on the graphics card and OpenGL version, so it wasn't always it wasn't enabled as by default, so that way it could break more things than actually fix it. But this setting has been around forever, has been tested, and most of the people agree that it should be on, and it is now on. So if you are in the viewport selection, OpenGL depth picking, this setting is now on. So if your selections suddenly work better, suddenly you click and you're actually selecting what you wanted to select, leave it on, it's fine. If you notice something weird going on with it, just try deselecting it and see if it improves your selection, because maybe there's still some corner cases. If so, maybe you could report it, because that way, you know, we developers know about which graphics card is still maybe problematic with that. Next, I have a bunch of grease pencil little things that I should want to talk about. There is also the sculpt branch, but the sculpt branch, maybe I can share some stuff because it's public, it's happening, but I wanted to actually get the build and share it, because if I show it and then you can't use it, what's the fun? So we are going to launch graphical. We hope to launch graphical this week, hopefully. So fingers crossed. So that way we can just put it on here, and then you click on the bird, and then you download it. This bird, by the way, is gonna be a character in the next or in A coming in this episode, because it's super fun. There are only 800 of these birds at home, still alive, and I think they're funny looking. Okay, before the fun stuff of Grease Pencil, some of the maybe not so boring, kind of boring. It's not really boring, especially if you're a developer, like add-on developer, because there's been many things. First, you can now make your own tools. You can make your own tools and register them. So what is that? If you are, by the way, people are asking which Ubuntu do I have? Well, if you go to youtube.com /Pablo Vasquez, yes, that is, it's me. So you'll see I have a video that is a younger version of myself showing my setup, basically, the things that I use. I think I haven't changed much since then, but I changed the Ubuntu version. I'm using Pop OS from System 76. So Pop OS system is not sponsored. I wish. It's a very nice operating system based on Ubuntu and meant to work well. So pretty nice. Next, the Python tools that I was mentioning. So everything that you find here on the right side, on the left side, is tools. It's a tool system, right? They're all built in Blender, but now add-ons can add their own and register them. So that is pretty nice. How do you do it? Well, you don't have to guess everything, because the developers added a template. So in the scripting or basically in the text editor in Blender, you can go to templates, Python, and then you'll find UI tool simple. This is like a demo file where you can see how a dummy or a very simple tool is registered on the sidebar. So you can use it as a reference for making your own tools. If you, for example, run the script, you will see that in here now there is a new tool that is a My Circle Select or My Lasso Tool Select. So if you change it, My Blender Today Select exclamation mark. You can change the icons. You can do pretty much everything here. So let's, for example, run it again. Oh, and it's registered. So it's already registered. So you have to run it again. Or actually, you have to deregister and then change it again. So if you do, it should work. No, it didn't work because I didn't start Blender. Basically, you can register and unregister if you do it properly and not in a rush during a live stream. Go make tools. More, the Rigify team is working. Rigify is the add-on, the built-in add-on that allows you to create rigs. So if you like pre-built rigs, so if you enable it, it comes with Blender, so you don't have to go anywhere to find it, and it's also updated. It's part of the official add-ons. So once you enable it, Rigify, from the add-on settings, you will find it in the armature drop down. You will find the human meta rigs, animals, basic, but also now there has been some changes internally that allow other people to add their own modules. So user-defined rig packages. So the community can make packages for like a dragon rig, and you could just basically use it and expand. So it's a great thing. I hope the community picks this up and then start making their own custom rigs and crazy stuff, or improve the ones that are already there. Next topic, more Python stuff. Oh yes, this one actually was today. Python defined node group. Sorry if it gets a bit technical today, but I found all these Python updates, and I think it's pretty nice for people making add-ons. So for example, add classes for shader and compositor nodes. So basically you can have you can if you're a more generic way to create node groups using for shaders and the compositor. That's something that wasn't there before, and it's super nice. Okay, let's get to Grease Pencil. Another a PSA here. So basically this is how I keep track of my news. I saw this commit log about the renaming of bpy.data.greasepencil is now greasepencils. It's plural because to match the rest, because for example to access the objects is bpy.data.objects. So yeah, just to make it more I don't know, I just saw it and it's like, if anybody is doing crazy stuff with the Grease Pencil API, then you should change that. Then the Grease Pencil news, actually I already mentioned them in the past. I have it here. The support of bounding box, the support for materials name in the object name that I already mentioned, but I can quickly show it. So, geez, am I speaking too fast, or anybody seen the new Houdini stuff? No, I should watch it. I have like the tab open. I wanted to see. Put your package in a blender. Eek, that's gonna hurt. You can reload the scripts. I forgot. Thank you. I forgot about that. Is the pressure, you know, stage frightened. Keep the beer on the new channel. That year is okay. So you like the idea of hanging out? Somebody once got angry that I was having a beer at the. I don't know why exactly. It's not like I'm. It's weird. It's not. I know it's not nice to share that with like. Maybe there's young people watching, and yes. Don't do it if you're below the age, supposed age. Okay, so when you have an object, a Grease Pencil object selected, and you choose name, you should be able to see now the name of the material that you have selected. If you have one selected in the last one, yes. You should see the name of the material, basically the color of the points that you have selected, the vertices. Oh, I didn't have the overlays enabled, that's why. Next, you can there has been some improvements on the fill. I don't have a fill tool. I don't have an example right here, but basically it's like improvement on overall the performance and how it looks, the fill. You know, when you're drawing a shape, for example, when you're in Grease Pencil to the animation, and when you're drawing a shape and using for example in this case the way it gets pre-filled, that has been improved. So if you had issues in the past with it, you should check it out. That has been improved. And kudos also to Charlie Jolie, the developer that is it. I think once I mentioned, oh yeah, there's a new developer like hanging out and doing Grease Pencil stuff, but actually he's not new at all. There is like his profile is like what, 11 years old. Yes, time flies when you have fun. From July, wow. Okay. 3D cursor view plane option. So you can basically lock now when you're drawing, you can lock the drawings to the cursor. So that is the 3D cursor. So if you have, for example, if you have geometry, if you have for example, here a piece of geometry, and you put the 3D cursor right there, and you want to draw exactly in that place, you can do so by just using the lock 3D cursor. So when you're drawing, it's gonna be stuck to that angle of the orientation of the 3D cursor, which by the way you can now change. Remember the rotation, you can change it from the settings down here in the sidebar. Canvas grid can now be locked to the 3D cursor. That's another improvement. Then new option to reproject the stroke using the 3D cursor. So reproject, basically, if you're drawing and you're a 2D animator or a 2D artist and you're drawing in 3D, but you forget about it, maybe it happens, and then you turn your camera to the side and you find that your drawings are all in different like places because of the 3D nature, of course. If you didn't have the lock set before, you can reproject them, so you can basically put them all in the same line, and that is one of the options that you can now lock to a 3D cursor position, to the 3D cursor for reproject, for the canvas, and for the view plane. So Grease Pencil just keeps getting better. So that's why, even though we're in feature freeze, those things are just quality of life, improvements. They're not like super from scratch things that have been added. Prosts. Okay, is there any way to render annotations in the Blender sequencer? Yes, you can actually. You just render like the same way. I shouldn't be answering these questions, and now I'm gonna go and answer the other questions in the on the thread. But just a quick one. Video editing. So if you are drawing here and you want to render this, you just go to View, Sequence, Render, and it crashes. So that's a quick way of closing Blender that we just learned. So I should probably report that, or if anyone is watching this and wants to report it, you could try. If it crashes for you, please go and report it, because we need tutorials on how to fix bugs like the one Jack made, but also we need a tutorial on how to report a bug. That I should make it maybe now after spring. I should make it at the studio. Okay, I think we are good to go. Oh, small PSA is that the image sequences in the Workbench engine, so the image sequence or a video in the Eevee was added recently, a couple of weeks ago. I made a video about it. It was a whole episode about it. It was big news. But now if they weren't working for the Workbench engine, they are now. So if you use the Workbench, you can now have video texture / image sequences working on the viewport. Super nice. Another one. CUDA. Upgrade your CUDA. If you have an NVIDIA graphics card and you have one of the newer ones, like an RTX, for example, or the newer ones, just update CUDA to the latest, because Blender, Cycles actually, is using now CUDA 10.1 as the officially supported CUDA version. So that is one of the things that was added. That's also brings like 5 to 20% improvements, like CUDA in general. Like if you're using an NVIDIA graphics card for rendering on Cycles, now you're gonna get faster rendering basically in production scenes. What does it mean, production scenes? These are one of the shots from either the Open Movie projects, for example, the Agent 327 or the Spring, or one of those being heavy shots. They're very nice to test performance. Then subdivision surface performance was also improved as in it's getting back to speed, because if you compare 2.7 to 2.8, the edit mode was a bit slower. Now it should get a bit better, because now there's topology cache. So as long as if you enter exit edit mode, it should be faster. But there's still things to tackle and make it faster than before. So there's still work to do in that regard. Cycles OpenCL viewport render now shows an ambient occlusion preview during the render until the kernels are fully compiled. What does it mean? This basically. So if you're using OpenCL, so if you're using AMD graphics card and you switch to render in the viewport with Cycles, it's not going to wait for having everything ready and then start rendering. Now it's gonna show you as fast as possible, as the best it can, whatever it has at hand. So basically it's like splitting the render into different kernels, it's called, like passes or parts, and then it will try to use whatever is available to show you and be responsive. So it's super nice. For example, here when you start rendering, if it didn't load the textures or like all the shaders, all the fancy stuff, it's going to show you first the ambient occlusion path, like a black and white, and then it's going to render the rest. So it in the end, you end up with something more responsive. You switch back and forth, and it should be faster to show you a preview. Then what else? Oh, there's a new preferences settings to display factors as percentage throughout the interface. That is a more of a, yeah, it's an interface thing basically. So if you go here, user interface, you can specify, you can make it so it's not here, it's in interface, setting to display. I was here, interface, here, factor display type. So you can show factor or percentage. What does it mean? For example, here you have a factor setting. You will find, for example, in here, these guys, these are factors. So if you show percentage, you will see that you can make it like 0% metallic or 100%. What does it change for the user? Nothing really, it's just the number, just what you see there. But it's a bit more easy to understand. Like it's not metallic 1.0, it's 100%. So it's more of an interface thing. You can change it any time. By default, it's set to factor, so it doesn't change anything. But what do you think? Maybe should it be default? Like should just stay default? Maybe. More. Help report the bug now automatically. Oh yeah, this is we were thinking of making a video tutorial on how to report a bug, but the developers were like, wait. Do you know that quote from Cosmos Laundromat? Wait. Because they were actually working on this feature. When you do help report a bug, it will now pre-fill all your settings from Blender. So basically it will know whatever version you're using, the graphics card that you're using. So in this case, it's yeah, showing everything, but it doesn't show the other graphics card, the GTX. Interesting. Okay, something to report, but it tries to fill in as close as possible. For example, here, the Linux version, that one is shown. Next is the window builds. Oh yeah, this is more for like helping reporting a bug. If you use Windows, you might when you report a bug, you might get asked by the developers to run a script that it's built in Blender. It comes with Blender, but helps you to like report bugs more easily. Basically, it will include extra information like what were you doing when you're like within Blender. So like all transparent, all the information is text, you will see it, but it will include more things like what was happening inside of Blender, like maybe it was trying to open an image, or maybe it was trying to render, like compile a shader or something. So it's very, very neat. Then I think that's about it. The X3D add-on that was added, I already mentioned it, and that is all. Oof, so many things covered. Okay, let's see how many questions. 37. Okay. Oof. Okay. Let's try to get it. Okay. 20 minutes. The Dorian says, "Hi Pablo, love your show. Thank you. Any news on OpenVDV support for Blender? I know it was a summer of code and Tangent Animation did a version of Blender with support, but no news on a potential integration since." Yeah. No. There is no news regarding that. I know I think it's if you search for the changes that the guys from the sculpt mode features, that's the build, the Blender branch that contains all the sculpt improvements. They are using OpenVDV voxel remeasure. So maybe that's like the update that is going on right now, that there is people working on the other part of OpenVDV. Is not the one that was used by Tangent, I believe. But yeah, no big improvements that I can mention for the time being. Let's see. Next, Lloyd Almeida. By the way, I'm gonna email you, Lloyd, just because I small off topic. I'm going to be emailing the top uploaders to graphical from the first page, because it's the one that is more the newer ones, to get in touch to upload their builds in the new graphical. How can developers making add-ons submit their add-ons as official ones? There is, okay, here, basically, thank you, they answered before I even get to answer. But yes, there is a wiki. If you want to get your add-ons in the official Blender, there is a process you can follow. Basically, you just need to follow the guidelines and commit to maintain that add-on, so it doesn't get abandoned. Next, what's happening here on the comments? Everything okay? Do you change the default cube from time to time? No. Well, I personally don't change it, but it could be changed. What else would be better than a cube? Like maybe a subdivided cube, so you can, when you start sculpting, that is already there. Let me know. Bjorn asks, hey Pablo, do you have an idea who David Jeske is? He is a developer. He's, by the way, if you go to blender.org, that's what he mentions. There is a new corporate gold, and the only one that is supporting now Blender, basically. So he is supporting Blender with even more than the other companies that are listed here. So that, and it's a name, right? So maybe you think oh, what's happening is one person trying to take over. Not really. He is known in the community, in the developers community, because he actually is a developer that is he's working so many big projects, and he usually, you will see his name contributing to big projects, but not really doesn't influence that. It's just somebody that's happily sharing and collaborating with open source. You should also check his work profile. He has done some huge things for open source as a developer. Dear Pablo, when can I start my own kingdom here? When? Just get in touch with me. What kind of kingdom do you want? Basically, you can have your own communities, but at first, we want to, for example, on Reddit, you can make your own subreddit without asking anyone and just have it. But for now, since there's not so many communities, we want to make sure that whatever community is actually a good place for people to hang out. In this case, we're inviting the Italian community, the French community. They actually got in touch with us to make the space. Maybe we can have what could it be, a game community, maybe game developers, game dev. Let me know. Sean Becker, is there any plans to allow us to bake displacement maps from node generated textures? Not for the time being, I'm sorry. Not that I heard. Maybe there is some development on the community that I am not aware of. Is it planned to port the texture atlas? Whoa, I'll change my voice. Puberty is hitting me. Is it planned to port the texture atlas add-on to 2.80? That's not built in Blender, I believe, but I bet everyone, I know the add-on and I know it's super popular, so I bet 2.80. Now that the API is sort of more stable, even though that it keeps changing, it should be good to be updated. Dead Drago, what do you think about the render buttons here, and what clock time will it start the live stream at work? I'm thinking about, about the time, I'm thinking about maybe 5 p.m., which is 5 p.m. Central European time, which should be Central European now. So now it's basically 4 hours before. So do the math. I'm thinking about that time. Let me know what you guys think. Maybe it's too early for Americans. Maybe it's 7, 8 a.m. for... So we'll see. But it's also good for the rest of the rest of the world, the other side. So we'll see how it goes. I'm gonna announce the final date next week. What do you think about the render buttons app here on the? I don't mind it actually. It's a bit out of. I don't think we should need a huge button for render animation. Like it's not really needed that much. You don't render that often, and usually either like you just need a little button. You don't have to hit it all the time. Render image on the other hand is good for making it more discoverable, I think. But it also is a bit out of place here. It should belong more on the render settings down there. Maybe the label of the current engine could be there. Maybe. Next question, Yoda Ninja. Yo, I have a question. How can I make left click select act like if I choose 2.7 shortcuts as a fresh start of 2.8? I can't use 2.7 shortcuts because some of them are not working. I think that sounds like a bug. Please report it, because if there is something incompatible between the 2.7 key map and the left click, right click, maybe that should be tackled. Riley Brown asks, could we get a left click select preset with some more default navigation? Alt LMB orbit, Alt LMB pan. What is more default? Blender, I think Blender default doesn't change, the navigation doesn't change between right click and left click. So don't hate on me. I know right click, right select is big on all. There's just some standard navigation across 90% of my programs. Just, yeah, it's maybe it could be done. I know it's very popular, but maybe it's something for a new developer to do it and propose a patch for it and just try to fit it in the UI properly, because having just another key map to maintain, it's kind of an like a overhead on the developers. But if someone from the community wants to maintain it, why not? Alex, hey Pablo, I made the change to Blender render to set the default curve fill mode. Hey, thank you. I still have some UI additions to the add curve menu to make working with curves even more friendly as the second part of my patch. Is there still a chance for it to make its way on 2.8? UI additions to make the working with curves even more friendly. If it's just a matter of UI tweaks and it doesn't change like big workflows, then it should be. It should be still time to add it, but I can't promise anything. I don't know exactly which areas it touches, but the idea is that, yeah, changes from now on, they are not too drastic. Even though the UI is still changing a little bit for the better, but still changing. Next question by Malars2030. Any news about the update 3D cursor? I need to add an object with the 3D cursor rotation and snapping option to center of a face. Would it be possible? Yes and no. Well, it's not possible at the moment. I don't know if there is any improvements in that area. Maybe it could sneak in, but again, maybe they should be part of an add-on, like there was a 3D cursor add-on in 2.7, so maybe it could be that, and then migrate to 2.8. Hi Pablo, thanks for all the videos that give us info on the nitty-gritties of what is happening in Blender. Thank you very much. One question, is there any way, or are there any plans to make possible to use a live video webcam as a texture in Eevee? Wow, we were able to do that back in like 15 years ago with on Windows at least. Back then I think I was using Windows 15 years ago or so. 17, and now that was possible. I'm not sure about it right now, but maybe with some OSL, yeah, with the open shading language, but that's not, I know, maybe not. I'm gonna get back to you on that. I'm not sure yet, but if it was possible, it would be awesome. Hello Pablo, how can you say 0 for my handle? Oh, okay, so 0 says, I feel like this will be one of those paper cut suggestions, but it would be useful to have a minus button for all the items in the open recent. maybe only appear on hover. I usually have a quick pause before opening anything, thinking, do I want this cluttering app? Yes, it would be useful. However, for example, if you check your user preferences in config Blender config, you'll find there is a recent files.txt, and this is basically the menu that you see. So if you don't want something, you can remove it from here. I know it's lame, it's not what you ask for, but that's like one way of doing it. Maybe there could be an add-on, but also it should be just possible to do it. Let's see, I just changed the name. Look how weird. I changed the text file to have like 2 lines here. It's like, let's see, Hola Blender today. Does it work? I never tried this before. Let's see. Okay, this is nasty, and this is like the time where I'm just like not really Hola Blender today. Yeah, actually you can. And now this Blender is gonna try to open this and fail because it's not a path, of course. But yeah, you can basically add anything there. Is that a security flow maybe? Eek. Okay, undo, save. Next. No, it's not a security flow. Who has access to render recent files.txt? But I agree, it would be cool to be able to remove and add options from there. I would even like to have like separators between the kind of blend files, or like the time, or even have a longer list or so. Next, Gassem Mola Hassani asks, what is your plan for the feature you will add for animation and rig system for 2020? I mentioned that last week. There is still discussions are going on about what is going to be part of that project, but basically character pipeline, working with characters, and pipeline in general, like just fitting into like a film production or your own short film, or just basically working with characters, which is now kind of a mess. But that includes the whole process of making a character. Next, add. What do you mean add? There's no ads. Hi Pablo, thanks for the show. I'm curious, how do you build Blender, and what is the most optimal way to do so? Via in-source or out of the source build? How do I build Blender? Well, on Linux it's fairly simple to build Blender. You basically, I'm not gonna do a tutorial how to do it right now, but basically it's just the way I do it. I have my own script, but basically I git cloned the sources in like somewhere, and then I just I go to build files, then build environment, and there is a file here called install deps. So you just run that, and it will basically install everything that you need for like all the libraries and everything for installing for compiling Blender. At the end, it's gonna show you a big make statement where you just run that make statement in the folder where you want. For example, where you usually it's called build Linux by default, but you can change the name, and you just run that make command, and it will make Blender. I made it into a little here compile.sh file that basically does that. Now I remove the making statement, and I just do make install, and yeah, it's very, very straightforward, nothing too fancy. I used to have more settings for like changing the way, like which branches, so I will have multiple branches, but yeah, next week I will try and compile and just try to compile it and upload it to the new graphic oil website that is coming up. Luca de Checa asks, thinking to sync sketch platform, is it possible to think a similar development internal? I'm not familiar with this, and I'm afraid of clicking in the live stream because I have to continue with the questions. I'm running out of time. It's 3 minutes to 10, but I'm gonna leave it open here just as in the background. I hope this doesn't have audio. Real-time collaborative media in the cloud. Oh well, this is something we would like to have for Blender Cloud itself, actually. But with the one day, Blender Cloud is gonna do this basically. You know, Blender Cloud is the production platform, the thing that we're gonna use for making films. We use Attract, we render with Flamenco. So in the future, we want to also be able to give feedback using Blender, and of course using the cloud to share between other people. Everything open source, of course. Cuddled Les asks, if I set up 2 collections with 1 render layer for each of them, only the items in the collection from the selected layer are visible and editable. It would be very handy if having access to all collections no matter what layer I'm just in the active collection. Well, you actually can do it if you have the outliner. Now that I've been working a lot at Blender at the studio with the outliner, I no longer have it like this tiny, but I actually now have like a whole column with the outliner, with the view layer view, so you can actually see, for example, which of the collections you have enabled, disabled, so you're gonna see what you're gonna render. But I also have a different view. I learned this from Andy at work with the Blender file, and then from here you have every collection. You basically have access to any collection, regardless if it's linked or not to this or excluded or not in this specific view layer. So that way you can just drag and drop, and you just start building your own like setup here. It's very handy. If you don't want something, you just unlink it and then it goes away, but it's still here. Like, it's not on the, you see, you can remove it, you can get it off your scene, like it's not on view layer, but actually the objects are still there in the matrix, in the limbo somewhere. That is very handy. Another thing that is handy is to have scenes here, and then you can easily change the active view layers from here. So instead of having to, if you have too many view layers, like /render layers, but we're in 2.7, instead of going all the way here, just click, go here, click, go here. You just come over and use the scene setting here, and then you can enable which one is enabled for rendering. This little icon over here is the same setting as clicking use for rendering. So that way you can, you know what is going to be rendered. Which, by the way, because of this setting that I forgot, because I'm not the sharpest pencil, whatever that expression is, I sent something to the farm and I forgot that there is another render layer enabled here, and the render took forever because I was trying to render both at the same time instead of just the active one. So yeah, check your view layers, people, before sending stuff to the farm and wasting time and the environment. Wasting the environment. Take care of your planet by rendering less or efficiently. Okay, it's 10 p.m. It's o'clock here, so but I started super late, so 5 more questions and then we call it a day, a Blender today. Next question, Boshi asks, number 5. Did you see this link? What did studio programmers think about this? Oh, about the e-cycles. Yeah. Until I don't see it actually working for reals, for like an animation, I'm not super impressed. But it seems to be very, very, very successful with lots of people, especially for stills, but I would like to see it in animation. It's hard to get a denoiser that works well in all circumstances. I think in the future, Blender or Cycles or whatever, Blender itself should have multiple denoisers. So maybe for animation, for the current animation, like the current denoiser in Blender Cycles is actually good for animation. It behaves pretty well, like kind of predictable. But for stills, it's not super optimal. You have options like the e-cycle, so you have the open, the one from Sony, or was it Sony? Yeah, the open image denoise, open denoise. Anyway, those work better for that kind of renders. So I think in the future, Blender should just have a bunch of denoisers and just use whatever works better for each purpose. Sometimes you have small detail, one denoiser will work better than if you have bigger detail. Next, Maze Nerd. Hi Pablo, love your video, thank you. And enjoy watching you talk about Blender, keep rocking it. Will the Blender selection bug be fixed sooner? It's not a priority at the moment. Not being able to select the intended element. Try with the new OpenGL depth picking. If like just try Open Blender, go to File, Load Factory Startup, and check if it's still an issue for you. Or just go to the User Preferences, Viewport Selection, and change it from there. Next, Strobe Blend. Hi Pablo, number 3, I think. Number 2. Thanks to all the team for the hard work. I will tell them. Can we expect to have in 2.8 the very useful feature Edge Offset Extrude Move Duplicate from the Edit Tools built-in add-on? Make a proposal in right-click select, because it's very specific. I'm not sure I remember this feature, but if it's so handy, then why not? There should be like a protocol in how to like upgrade those tools to go from community or add-on into like a top level support. Next, and number 1 and last one, Silas, about the hotkey in sculpt mode. Will there be a change, or did I miss something? Because shift space and then finding the brush is not really fast. Also, when will the VFX pipeline be improved? The VFX pipeline, there is no plans at the moment, but that at least that I heard of. I don't know also which part is like a big, like what's too bad about it. I mean, the motion tracker works. It's actually known for working pretty well. One of the areas that works the best in Blender. Compositor, that's what we need. The compositor needs to be improved. But yeah, if you have any ideas on how to improve it, then share them, because that's what the Sculpt people did. They just made a big document with all the features that could be improved, that motivates developers and artists to improve it even better. And now they have their own branch in Blender that basically can have and test all the little improvements here and there, and the deeper changes in the Sculpt in general. So in the future, it's very likely that those features are going to be ported over to Master, to the official Blender, as long as they follow the coding guidelines and performance, especially because adding features is maybe not so much work usually. Most of the time it's not like adding a feature. Sometimes it feels like it's, oh, this developer made it in a weekend. What's that? Is it magic? Sometimes it is magic, and sometimes it's that adding the feature is not the biggest part of the job. Is making it work properly, performant, and fit with the rest of Blender. That is the main issue, because Blender is just a bit too big sometimes in them. So you touch one area and it ripples over all of the rest of Blenders. So I am running out of time. Sorry for not being able to answer the questions, but it's 5 minutes past 10. I'm super happy actually that we are gonna be able to continue doing this show, especially more officially. Imagine being here, like you're gonna be I was in the Blender Today channel when it was still growing back then, before it went mainstream, on the Blender official YouTube channel. Well, okay, no, I will try to keep it the same, keep it real, keep it as what it is, a place, a weekly moment for us to hang out and just talk about Blender, nerd out about all this amazing open sourceness going on. All right, time to leave, but I'll see you again. Watch out your headphones if you're using any. I will see you again, same place, same time, same everything. Ciao. Okay, awesome. Bye bye. See you. Ciao next week. Ciao.